Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Allie, and today I don't really know what this video is going to be, but it's gonna have a lot to do with death. Today is a vlog. I have a never-ending TBR, and that is why I have a TBR jar now that I'm trying to pick out of each season and then fit them into video concepts, or just like if I can fit that read in, or you know, just to like dwindle my TBR a little bit. It also is a little bit inspiring for me to be able to have a better way of finding books to read if I'm in a little bit of a rut or I can't make up my mind. So I pulled some the beginning of this year to kind of finish out the winter season, and I have quite a few I still need to read. Because of that, this is now past Allie. It's the week of Valentine's Day right now, and I'm currently reading Dead 11 by Juliano. I've been wanting to read this for so long. It is definitely a TBR lingerer. I drew it from the jar, so it was perfect. It also happened to be perfect timing because I was able to snag it from my library, but I've had this hold on the audiobook for months, you guys, and I just got it through Libby, and it was just perfect timing. So I was like, you know what, I'm starting this video. There's quite a few books that are on my TBR, but some that I've actually already started as well, and for some reason they all align into this like morbid type of vlog idea that just centers around death. So Dead 11. I have notes on an execution. I have Over My Dead Body, which is a nonfiction about America's cemeteries. And gosh, I'm trying to think. I believe there's more, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna throw them all together and we're gonna read a lot of books about death. And honestly, I'm here for it, just like I am with this cover. I cannot get over how amazing this cover is, and I'm trying to do better. I've been failing, and I've been ordering a lot of books recently, but I have been getting better as far as like just ordering books that I ended up enjoying reading. So I'm still utilizing my library a lot, and I'm trying to either build collections as in authors I've already read and I usually love their work, like Stephen King, and you know, authors that like I read from a lot that I want to collect from. And the others I'm kind of like taste testing with my library, reading them first, seeing if I like them, and then I'm going to commit to buying them if they're like 5 stars, maybe some 4 stars too, of course. But I wanted to buy this one just because of the cover, but I did hold off, and now I'm kicking myself because I'm eating this book up. I love it so much. I'm a little over halfway because I have been listening to the audio. I'm not gonna lie, I was gonna read this physically all the way through since I did get the book, but the audiobook came at the right time, and then I got busy, so I stuck the audiobook on, and I have just been sucked in. So if you're going to read this, I can't tell you for sure if this is a win for me or not. So far, I'm actually really enjoying the story as well. But if you read this at all, whether I end up not liking it or liking it, I highly recommend the audiobook. It is so good. I will try to put a little bit of it in this vlog for you so you can get a general idea. But this is horror, but it has like this like mystery element to it all the way through, which causes us to have like a bunch of chapters that are just like in different point of views, a bunch of different characters, and that means we have kind of like a full cast when it comes to like the audiobook, which is really cool. But there's some chapters, I'm gonna try to see if I can find. There's some chapters that are like this and are like text messages, I believe. No, this is the interview. So this is an interview, and all of a sudden you hear like a tape recorder sound hit. And then it's a little staticky, but like the vibes, the aesthetic of it literally sounding like we're listening to their tape recording is so cool. I absolutely love it. And they played the characters and the parts so well. There's also fast-paced chapters so far. like this, which are just like text messages back and forth as we're kind of like learning with the characters what is going on this island. I'm eating it up and I cannot wait to update you guys on it and let you know what I think, because it is just so good so far. And that is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to read some more and hopefully be able to come back and let you guys know what I thought of this. But I'm going to give you guys a quick synopsis and go film the other things I need to film and hopefully finish this out today as well. Clifford Island. When Willow Stone finds these words written on the floor of her deceased son's bedroom, she's perplexed. She's never heard of it before, but soon learns it's a tiny island off Wisconsin's Door County Peninsula, 200 miles from Willow's home. Why would her son write this on his floor? Hoping to find answers, Willow sets out for the island. After a few days on Clifford, Willow realizes this place is not normal. Everyone seems to be stuck in 1994. They wear outdated clothing, avoid modern technology, and, perhaps most mystifyingly, watch the O.J. Simpson car chase every evening. When she asks questions, people are evasive, but she learns one thing: close your curtains at night. High schooler Lily Becker has lived on Clifford her entire life, and she is sick of the island's twisted mythology and adhering to the rules. She's been to the mainland and everyone is normal there, so why is Clifford so weird? Lily vows to prove that the islanders' beliefs are a sham, but are they? Then Willow disappears. Her brother Harper comes to Clifford to look for her, and when he learns the truth, that this island is far more sinister than anyone could have imagined, he is determined to blow the whole thing open, if he can get out alive.
Clifford Island. Excerpt of Lily Becker interview with Peter Elliott. Tell me about the island.
What is this for again?
It's an oral history project for Miss Stone.
This isn't your project?
No.
So it is in fact the next day, but I did finish at 11, and I'm currently getting ready. So I thought while I got ready, I could talk to you guys a little bit about my thoughts, how I'm feeling about the book. And honestly, it was a success for me because going into this book, I feel like I knew the gist of it. I actually thought this book was in the 90s, and you would get from the synopsis that it is not, that the people are just living like it's still the 90s on this island, and was wrong about that, but I then knew a little bit of the gist. But obviously not a whole lot, since the biggest plot point kind of went over my head. But I had heard very mixed reviews on this book. Like, so many people really liked it, other people just said it didn't really do it for them, or it was so close. And there was points in this book, I can say, where I was like, okay, I could see where people maybe thought it was like maybe slow in some places, like storyline wise. Yes, I could definitely see that, but the writing was so entertaining that I was never bored with it whatsoever. Even the slower parts, I wasn't bored. I was so entertained like the entire time. I don't know if I've ever listened to a better audiobook. It was so good. All of the voices were phenomenal. They did amazing playing the parts of each of these characters, and it just made the story really come to life, that I would highly suggest doing the audiobook if you're going to read this book, or do a little like tandem back and forth if you wanted to. Oh, it was such a good book. I feel like you guys probably can gather from the synopsis a lot of what's going on here. I feel like it's very much cultish vibes. It definitely reminded me of Midnight Mass. I just kept getting the feeling like it's just so much like Midnight Mass, but then it's not in a way too. It has like those certain elements if you've seen that show. There was another one, but I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was like, oh, it kind of reminds me of that too. Kind of a little bit of The Village, that M. Night Shyamalan movie. A little bit of that, because the people don't really want like the families that already live on the island to leave the island, or the new people that come in, they don't really like them to leave. So it does kind of remind me a little bit of that. It was super entertaining. I felt like for the most part, the first half is very like mystery thriller vibes, but then it goes into horror elements as you go. And the audiobook, while you have the full cast, which is already amazing, what I loved about it too is this book is written in so many different ways. Like you're jumping different point of views, but also those point of views are sometimes a letter. So like one of the characters writing a letter to somebody else, or text messages between two characters, and even like audio recordings from two people, because some of the kids are interviewing people in the community, and every time it's one of those chapters, the audiobook, you hear like the clicking sound of somebody pressing the tape recorder, and it has like this fuzzy background, like static to it, so it sounds like you're actually listening to the recording. It immerses you so much into the story that it feels like it's a real story, like this actually happened. It was so cool. I absolutely loved it. And you know, then it clicks off at the end of that chapter and then goes back to normal. It was just so good. I loved that touch to it. I definitely would recommend it, and go in as blindly as you can. I feel like with the synopsis, you're pretty much good to go. And it was such a fun time. I gave it 5 out of 5. And I am going to be diving back into Notes on an Execution, which I'm kind of really torn on because I started this book at the beginning of the month and then I sat it down. Not gonna lie, I was celebrating my in bulk, so I kind of think a little bit of it was my mood. I was like, oh, okay, these are not the vibes I'm wanting to celebrate today, but picked it back up today, you guys, and it's been a little hard to get through, to say the least. I am just listening to it on audio now because I did have to take my book back, but Everend has the audio. So I'm finishing the book out, I'm picking up where I left off, and I've been working through it. I think I am about halfway through, so I should be able to finish it today or tomorrow and let you guys know what I'm thinking. I actually didn't plan on filming a whole lot of this video because I honestly don't know when this one's gonna go up. I guess I'm gonna put it up sooner than I had originally planned, but all of these books and even the other ones that I have in mind for this video have just really been calling to me. I'm like, they're the books that I want to read right now. Quick little everyday face just to feel a little bit more put together. But I will update you guys whenever I get further or when I finish. I'm going to be jumping back into my Skull in a Bell Jar cross stitch. If you watched my last horror-a-thon video, I started it then and I made so much progress in 24 hours and I've made a little bit more sense, but I would love to continue working on it and hopefully finish a project. So I think that's what I'm gonna do while I listen to the Notes on an Execution, I think. Ansel Packer is scheduled to die in 12 hours. He knows what he's done and now awaits execution, the same chilling fate he forced on those girls years ago. But Ansel doesn't want to die. He wants to be celebrated, understood. Through a kaleidoscope of women, a mother, a sister, a homicide detective, we learn the story of Ansel's life. We meet his mother, Lavender, a 17-year-old girl pushed to desperation. Hazel, twin sister to Ansel's wife, inseparable since birth, forced to watch helplessly as her sister's relationship threatens to devour them all. And finally, Safi, the detective hot on his trails, who has devoted herself to bringing bad men to justice but struggles to see her own life clearly. As the clock ticks down, these 3 women sift through the choices that accumulate in tragedy, exploring the rippling fissures such destruction inevitably leaves in its wake, blending breathtaking suspense with astonishing empathy. So since I left you guys, I did in fact finish Notes on an Execution. I did, like I said, finish this audiobook because I did start this the beginning of February, and I'm just now sitting down and like editing these pieces together and realized I never did an update on this book for you guys. I did finish it though, and I liked it. This was a very heartbreaking story to read. I had a really hard time with it. I struggled with it, and not because it was boring, it was quite entertaining, but more so because of these sad elements of it. It's such a touchy and hard subject to even talk about, of the death penalty in general and how it's still a thing. And I don't know, it's a really sad ordeal, because there's this part of you that like really feels for Ansel and like his story of being in such a terrible state of mind back when he was a child, everything he went through, and knowing his backstory, and then like where his mind is at now, and you know, knowing that this guy really needed help and never fully got that help, which spiraled into these awful, heinous crimes over and over again. And so to an extent you can feel for him, but at the other extent you're so mad at him for these crimes and for these women's lives. And then you follow the point of view of the sister to his wife, Hazel, who is watching him treat her sister a certain way, and kind of knowing that something is off about him, trying to figure out what it is. And then she's being told by this other woman, who is somebody from his past and now his future and present as well, because she is looking into his case, and she's starting to put things together that he is the culprit of these crimes. And so Safi, I believe was her name, she is a childhood friend of his, and now she works as a, I forgot what her title is, some type of like detective. She's trying to like solve this case. No one's taking her seriously because she's a woman, and they just think like she just has the wrong idea, and like she's just trying to pin it on this poor guy who seems innocent and has really played it off. And so it's like, it's so hard, and you feel for her because she's talking about these crimes and what happened to these girls, and it's so heartbreaking. But then you're sad too, because you hear Hazel's side of the, side of it, where Hazel is talking to Safi about him and about like if he could be the one that has done those crimes, and then her pain because of her sister. Then we jump back to Ansel, who is on death row and kind of thinking like he's going to be able to get himself out of it because he's manipulating another woman. And there's just so many elements to the story, and not to mention then going back and forth from the beginning, from Lavender, the mother, who was a young mother and was in an abusive relationship, and dealing with that, and what she had to go through, and what she ultimately chose to do with her children. And then on top of that, like, then we have her in the future, like her finding out everything that happened to her son and what he did. And it's just, it's so gut-wrenching. So many thoughts go through my head of all the elements of the story, everything that it kind of touches on, everything I gathered and got from it. Not only the awareness of SA and abuse, domestic violence in general within relationships and these young girls, getting mixed up in that, but like the whole Roe versus Wade, the concept of people just thinking like these kids should have kids, and then they should just be put in like the system and just see what happens. And just then we dive into the true crime of things, of thinking about how many people are on death row and how is that ethical. And like I said, a bunch of touchy things going on here that this video is not about and was not supposed to be about, but it's still, it felt so real. It felt like I was reading a nonfiction. The writing was absolutely beautiful. I was very immersed into the story. They did a phenomenal job with it and with the storytelling. And while I feel like this is a story I cannot give less than 5 stars, it doesn't sit right with me. Like, I feel like it's not a 5-star for me, but I'm having a really hard time saying it is a 4-star. I think it touched on a lot of really important conversations and really important things, and I appreciate that from it. I appreciate the beautiful writing, but I still just feel so like off-put with it that I don't know. It's not setting super well with me. It's hard to say it was a beautiful story while it was so depressing and just so intense. I'm not sure where I left you guys off last. I don't even know if I talked about this book, but the next book I'm starting is This Wretched Valley. This is by Jenny Kiefer, and I was looking into this author and I thought it was really cool, so I wanted to go ahead and pop in for a little check-in because I'm only just now starting this. I'm like 1 chapter in. But this author lives in Kentucky. She's an avid rock climber, which is cool for the concept of this book. I'll give you guys a synopsis in a minute. But together with her mother, she is the owner and manager of Butcher Cabin Books, an all-horror bookstore in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm like, I want to go. Bucket list. But this is her debut novel, and I don't live far from Kentucky, so I'm like that far. It's still quite a ways. But I'm like, I could plan a trip eventually. But yeah, I am starting this book. I am super intrigued by it, although I've heard very mixed things, and I really hope I don't turn around and like give such a low rating on this after I'm like, I want to go see her bookstore. It's all horror bookstore. But this is one of my books on 24 and 24, I believe. I'm pretty sure this one made the cut. I believe this is also one of my book club picks for, I think, the month of February, and I'm just late. I got it from my library, from my hold, so I wanted to dive into it, and I've heard such amazing things about it as far as people wanting to read it and it being on like so many people's anticipated lists, but then the people that I've seen read it, I haven't really looked at any reviews or spoilers or their exact thoughts on it, but I've seen lower ratings, so I'm like, oh no, but I'm still super excited to read it. But I thought I would check in, let you guys know that I'm starting my next book that somewhat has to do with death. I mean, I'm a chapter in and it has to do with death. So we're in October of 2019 and the bodies are being discovered, and like the particular way they were found, and it's like a mystery, and everybody is like examining the bodies and trying to figure out what could have happened and what does this mean, and you know, the mystery of it all. And then at the end of that, we're going back in time to February 2019 to see what happened and see it all play out. I'm excited for the ride. Take only pictures, leave only bones. This trip is going to be Dylan's big break. Her geologist friend Clay has discovered an untouched cliff face in the Kentucky wilderness, and she is going to be the first person to climb it. Together with Clay, his research assistant Sylvia, and Dylan's boyfriend Luke, Dylan is going to document her achievement on Instagram and finally cement her place as the next rising star in rock climbing. 7 months later, 3 bodies are discovered in the trees just off the highway. All are in various states of decay. One a stark white skeleton, the second emptied of its organs, and the third a corpse with the tongue, eyes, ears, and fingers removed. But Dylan is still missing, and no trace of her, dead or alive, has been discovered. Were the climbers murdered? Did they succumb to cannibalism? Or are their impossible bodies the work of an even more sinister force? This dread-inducing debut builds to a blood-curdling climax and will leave you shocked by the final twist.
A little phone update because I look like this. I'm literally doing laundry, so if you hear that. It's been a busy day, but I wanted to check in on this book. I'm like 40 pages in, and I'm just having a really hard time with it, you guys. I'm struggling. I think it's the way it's written that's really not doing it for me, because it's building up like the suspense and like what's going to happen. The way it's written, for me anyways, it's a little YA. So I'm having a hard time getting into it because of that, I think. I'm not really connecting too much with any characters yet, which I don't really mind, but for, you know, this type of read. I don't know. I'm gonna have to let you guys know. I don't know what about it is feeling so YA to me, but it just is. It's the vibe. Trying not to cave and get the audiobook, I'm trying to just physically read it. Because if I do, I'm gonna have to just buy the audiobook. And I don't really want to. I would prefer just to read it. But it's almost like I feel like I might enjoy it a little bit more if I listen to somebody else read it to me instead of me reading it when it's filling this YA, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'll let you guys know.
Stop staring, be quiet. Look at me, there I go, choking on my silence. And I don't think you want me cause I wanna keep it private.
Not gonna lie, I'm kind of sad to be here because I have to give you guys the news that I gave it 3 stars. I know it's still not a horrible rating, but this book had so much potential, and that's why I'm very disappointed. It went in so many different ways that I was very confused. I also had quite the time with the writing style. It wasn't my all-time favorite, and I'm kind of seeing this being a repetitive review of the book. I think if you do usually tend to read YA or like YA, I think you would like the writing style for this maybe more than I would. I don't even know where to go with this review because of how much I've already said. And I don't want to just give the whole story away, but I kind of feel like the author did in the synopsis and the prologue. So it's just kind of a little bit of a bummer. I feel like we're tossed into a book where we already know these characters are going to die. There's that little mystery as to one of them is missing, so we don't know where she's at. So there's a little bit of that, but it's just not enough to keep you going throughout the whole book and to really want to know what's going to happen next. You don't really attach to any characters or root for any characters, and you kind of know what's going to happen to them. And then you're just like, okay, this could still be really cool. This could be a really cool survival type of horror. Thing is too, like, I love this type. I love this survival. I love the will they survive, will they not. In this case, I kind of wish we didn't know that they didn't survive, because that element would have added a little extra to this. I get what the author was doing of trying to make it kind of like a news type of investigation or like a mystery case. I get that, and I do still kind of like that appeal as well, but it just didn't work for this particular one because I felt like it needed that little bit of edge to help the story. Then from there, I was just really disappointed with how the plot wrapped up, how everything wrapped up, because there was so many different directions that she could go in with this, and she really went in 50,000 different directions and then just kind of tried to combine them all, where if she really would have went in to one, maybe 2 directions and really honed in on it and, you know, made it work a little bit more and flow a little better into the story, it could have been so good. It just missed the mark for me, unfortunately. I will say, though, I will keep this author in mind. I'm still, like, if I'm ever around that area, I do want to check out their horror bookstore. I think that is really, really cool. And I will keep her in mind for future books, and hopefully we'll read another one. Now, I am going to be reading Over My Dead Body to wrap up this vlog, because I started this book last year. And since then, I have not really been into any type of nonfiction. And I don't know, I'm starting to want to branch out a little bit into it again. I have been looking back into the book club I used to participate in, and it's a nonfiction true crime. I'm also kind of like dabbling into some true crime stuff again. So I'm like kind of wanting to get back into some nonfiction, and I thought that this would be a really good one to get into. This is one I've mentioned before. It's Unearthing The Hidden History of America's Cemeteries. And it is by Greg Melville. He is somebody who used to work, I think he called himself a grave digger, and that's what he did. He worked in cemeteries, and now as a retired husband and father, anytime his family goes on vacation, he's drawn to different cemeteries across America, and he wanted to compile them and put them in a book. And I actually have read a good portion of this. I do think I'm going to try to skim back through it. I do have the audiobook on Everend, so I believe it was on there. Hopefully it still is, because that will help me with the nonfiction. But I'm also taking notes, really looking, deep diving into cemeteries, so I know it's going to take me a little bit longer to get through to this. And I really wish I would have started this earlier in the week, earlier into this vlog, so that I could do maybe like a couple cemeteries a day or something, but it is what it is. I still think it would be really cool to maybe throw in some fun facts here and there for you guys, just to wrap up this vlog about a couple different cemeteries as I read it and let you guys know what I think. But yeah, stay tuned for that.
It's my own fault, I can't give in. I have to go, stuck up on the top. Interest in my crap though, too many kind foes. The reason I struggle, because I'm fucking shy. I never wanna show my face sometimes, and I got trouble looking people in the eye. Cause when I do, I just forget off. I wanna do it, I'ma feel like I'ma die. Stairwell, cause it's my own fault, I can't give in. I have to go, stuck up on the top floor. Apologize, cause my goodbyes, let's reschedule when I'm not shy. And I don't wanna show my face sometimes, and I got trouble looking people in the eye. Cause when I do, I just forget all. I wanna do it, I'ma feel like I'ma die. Share my story. If you hear this song, no, it's not you, it's me, I'm sorry. I don't wanna be the reason why you make this little lie. What's the point of having pointless conversations for one night? Cause I'm shy, I never wanna show my face sometimes, and I got trouble looking people in the eye. Cause when I do, I just forget I wanna do it, I'ma feel like I'ma die. I never wanna show my face sometimes, and I got trouble looking people in the eye. Cause when I do, I just forget off. And when I do it, I'ma feel like I'ma die.
Hello you guys. I thought I would wrap up this video by talking about my 5-star read. Did I just sit down and film this whole outro and come to realize that my mic wasn't working again? Again? Yes. It's been happening quite a bit lately, and it's starting to get really frustrating because I have a lot of footage that I can no longer use for a lot of videos. Yeah. Anyways, wrapping up this video. It is a little windy out. I apologize. You can skip this if you would like. I really appreciate you watching. This video has been a long time coming. I've been working on it all year. I had a fiasco with this book. I rented it. I checked it out from my library last year, started reading it, really liked it, just didn't have the time for it. Took it back, checked it out again at the beginning of this year, reread it, read some more, then took it back because my mental health was really bad. And then I checked it out again, had other video ideas and stuff that I was doing, didn't have time to read it, took it back, and honestly I was going to scrap this whole video, but I've been working on this all year long. And then I happened to find it at a Goodwill, and so I thrifted it. And I've been highlighting and finding a lot of fun facts in this, and I wanted to share at least a few with you guys. I literally just did, and the audio is corrupted. So I'm gonna do it again. Anyways, this is by Greg Melville. I'm giving it 5 stars. It's an amazing nonfiction, especially if you like just weird bits. Also, if you love history, I think you'll love this. It was good. And I apologize, there's now sirens, because why wouldn't there be? Did I even mention this time? This is my cemetery that I walk at every morning. Usually there's not sirens. Okay. So I do apologize. I was an ambulance, and honestly, they're doing the Lord's work, so I apologize there. But I was just meaning a lot of the time it's a lot more peaceful here. There's not a lot of noises, not a lot of people besides the people that are underground, and it's very peaceful. But yeah, you can see the chapel behind me, and then there's just, it's a cemetery all the way. I love it here. This is like my second home this year and last year. Like, I'm just here all the time. I love it. Whether I'm walking, getting my steps in, or just sitting on a blanket like I am right now and just with my books reading. Anyways, so I thought that would be the best way to wrap this up. I am giving this book a 5-star. I loved it. I loved all of the little bits about himself being a gravedigger for all these years. I loved the bits about him and his family and his weird curiosity with traveling around the world or talking about cemeteries around the world even, and how much joy he gets out of them, because I feel it. I'm a weirdo too. I like cemeteries. I also liked some of the other stuff he really talks about in this book, and it's some of the fun facts I wanted to talk about, so let's get into it. First of all, did you know that the average grave isn't 6 foot deep? So you know how they always say, like, yeah, when I'm 6 feet under, or, you know, like all the different jokes and even like song lyrics, stories, everything always says 6 feet deep. I think there's some grave diggers out there working right now. Yeah, the average or proper size of each grave is about 8 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 5 feet in depth. The 6 foot rule likely originated during a plague outbreak in the mid-15th century England, preventing the spread of diseases and to stop animals and grave robbers from unearthing the corpses. American cemeteries are 4 to 5 feet deep, and they usually, the standard rule is to have a concrete vault, which adds anywhere from $1,000 to as much as $10,000 to your funeral bill, which is insane. Another little fun fact for you is a NASA scientist recently used satellite images to map 144,000 cemeteries in America, which is nearly 10 times the number of Starbucks in the country and 8 times the numbers of McDonald's restaurants. Is that not mind-blowing? Like, I understand, like, thinking about it, in retrospect, you're just like, yeah, that many people have died. I mean, we're talking centuries, but like, at the same time, when you put it that way, and when you think of it that way, I wonder about Dollar Generals, though. If you live in the Midwest, you know. There's a Dollar General, I feel like, on every corner, every street corner, we have a Dollar General. So I wonder how they compare. One thing that I do absolutely love how he talks about and makes a point to talk about throughout this book is the fact that many cemeteries today remain racially segregated and unequally treated. A historic black burial ground struggled to survive due to the lack of public protections and support. Did you guys know that most city cemeteries, even like this one behind me, that are more white dominant are protected and they're taken care of, and even in some states, like by law, but there's so many black dominant cemeteries that are just not. It's mind-blowing. And not just that, but like historic ones. There is historic black slave graveyard cemeteries around plantation houses that still to this day are not taken care of, are not treated at all. There's weeds, you can't see markers, if there is any markers. It's so sad. There were so many parts of this book that like my gut just like clenched because I was just like, this is so sad. And he talks about going and visiting a plantation just because he knew that there was a historic black cemetery around it that he wanted to visit and see. And he said there was no markers to find it. He said you can go to any big cemetery and they're gonna have markers and like it's all elaborate and there's these stone statues and there's all of these really like almost like making these cemeteries like parks so they're more enjoyable to be at. But yet there's not even markers for you to be able to find a historic black cemetery. Really? Wild. Cemeteries, as we've known them for the last 150 years, are reaching the end of their life cycle. At the same time, more Americans are now cremated than buried. Almost 4 million gallons of embalming fluid are placed underground with the dead each year, and these chemicals eventually seep into the groundwater. Then there are the preservatives used in making caskets, the mercury from dental fillings and pacemakers, and the bacteria and viruses we leave behind. The rest of this is a bunch of chapters. Like each chapter is about like a different cemetery. There's also like history things. Like this one is historic Jamestown, Virginia, and it talks about everything that kind of like went down there. For instance, this photo here. It says, crosses mark the spot where the remains believed to belong to Jamestown's first settlers by the statue of colony leader John Smith. Also, little fun facts here and there about just other things about death, like the fact that he learned that some ants bury their dead, some bees and termites do too. Elephants have been known to throw dirt, leaves, and branches over the remains of the dead, and what seems to be a ritual attached to the mourning process, and dogs have been observed doing the same, talking about how when humans grieve and kind of having a ritual or ceremony helps us grieve. It's the same like with animals. And then it goes into tons of different religions and cultures and different practices that have been done over centuries. And he really goes into it. It's really interesting. For instance, the ancient Egyptians interwove astrology with the placement of the dead. Egyptians believed human spirits were transported after death to the fields of reeds, a paradise that closely mimicked a person's life and existence on earth, minus conflict and suffering. This wind, you guys. I'm so sorry if it's annoying. It feels nice though. It's like fall weather. I love it. Anyways, back to the Egyptians. Because of this, they were traditionally buried with food, jewelry, games, weapons, and other things that could be useful for them in this like second mirror-like life. And that even included like the more rich Egyptians or even like pharaohs and stuff like that were literally mummified, put in their tomb, and then they would bury lock their favorite like servants and stuff in there with them. So the servants would just pretty much like just die in there with them because they believed they would be with them in the afterlife. Can you imagine just being like somebody's servant and then them being like, other people being like, well, they're dead and we're mummifying them and we're throwing you in the tomb with them because you were the favorite. Like, probably no pick-me's back then. There's so many different fun facts in this. I went through and highlighted so many things, and there's so many things that are about history and elements that I feel like if you hate learning about history or you just get super bored with it, you might get bored with some of this. The audiobook does help, but it still is super intriguing, and just to know the history of the cemeteries and when they were created and some of the first people that were there, it's just always been so intriguing to me. I've always been interested in it. He also talks about some of the like most famous cemeteries and even finding where Walt Disney is buried and saying that it took him a minute. It was tricky to find it. He too was wondering if the conspiracy theory that Walt Disney is underneath Disney World is actually a thing until he finally found Walt Disney's marker, at least, of where it says he's buried. There's so many different ones in here, though, different graves that he's visited and seen, and different concepts that different cemeteries do, like the mausoleums and different things like that. There's so many different facts and stuff like that all the way through this. You should definitely check it out. It was such a good time. I really enjoyed it, and like I said, 5 stars. And I'm wrapping up this video there. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank thank you guys so much for sticking with me for this whole year for me to make this video. I really appreciate it. And honestly, I wish I could say this was the only one, but I still have other videos that if I don't scrap them, throw them out, they will be coming to you guys that I've been filming over the course of months too. But thank you guys for sticking with me through this long video. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in my next video.
Because I'm fucking shy, I never wanna show my face sometimes. And I got trouble looking people in the eye, cause when I do I just forget off.